he's trying to remind us to remember not to just look after yourself, not to just do your devotion by yourself. That's good. You should do your devotion. You should pray. You should do the worship songs. You should do all of that. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that there are people outside of yourself that need you. The last two verses of James, verses 19 and 20, and it says, "My brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth, and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. My brother, if anyone among you wanders from the truth, and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sin." If you notice, most of the things that James has been talking about previous to this has been internal issues. Internal issues within the church. Internal issues within your soul. He talks about controlling your mouth, controlling your tongue. He talks about favoritism and politics in the church. He talks about how to press through trials. He talks about how to build your faith. He talks about faith without works is dead. He talks about all of these things that are unique to your individual walk with Christ, that are unique to the internal issues of the church, that are unique to the internal issues of your salvation and how to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And in these last two verses, he turns his gaze from internal to external. Almost as if it's a reminder to us, almost as if he shouldn't have to say it, almost as if we should already know this. He kind of just sprinkles it in. He just throws it in as the last sentence of the chapter. Remember that if anyone wonders, you have an obligation to reach out after them and to bring them back to the truth. It's a reminder that Christianity is not about ourselves. It's a reminder that your faith journey, while it's personal, is not private. That you have an obligation to the brothers and sisters and the people around you. As a matter of fact, you have an obligation to the world to share your faith. That Jesus' final words were also the Great Commission, and he sent us out. He didn't just send us in. Yeah. This is going to be a good message today, I can tell already. Yeah, he sends us out, and he's trying to remind us to remember not to just look after yourself, not to just do your devotion by yourself. That's good. You should do your devotion. You should pray. You should do the worship songs. You should do all of that. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that there are people outside of yourself that need you. There are people in the world that need you to be a light on the hill, to be the salt to the earth. There are people that need you to share their faith. And if someone is wondering, you have an obligation to bring them back to the truth. This is kind of controversial in our culture because we have this attitude of you do you and I'm going to do me. And in the Christian way, what we say is, I'm going to just pray for you. But behind that is the attitude of you do you, and I'm going to do me. But if you look at the language, if we can pull it back up one more time, if you look at the language that James is saying, he has such an urgency behind it. He's not just talking about saving someone from a mistake. He's not just talking about changing someone's mind when they're getting ready to do a bad decision. Look at the words he says. He says, saving a soul from death. Saving someone's soul from death. And if you saw someone driving off a cliff and you said, well, you do you, and I'm going to do me. If you saw someone heading into danger, if you saw someone on the verge of death and you said, I'm going to just pray for you, you might be complicit by way of apathy. We have an obligation to go after the wanderers in our life, and you will save a soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. This is not about to each their own. This is not about you do you and I'm going to do me. What James is reminding us is that you are your brother's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. Your brother is going to need you eventually, and whether you like it or not, you're probably going to need the person next to you eventually, because the truth about wondering is that we all wonder sometimes. You might be in church and you don't want to admit it because you look all cute, you got your wig straight and your heels on and all that. You don't want to admit it. But the truth is we all wonder from time to time. And it might not be an egregious, out loud sin that everybody sees. Sometimes it's just the quietness in your heart, and you just begin to wonder and drift away from time to time. There are many things that can cause us to wonder. Trauma can cause us to wander away. Hard times and heartbreaks can cause us to wander away. Depression can cause us to wander away. An unanswered prayer can cause us to wander away. The Presbyterian hymn writer, he said it like this in his song, Come Thou Fount, which was written in 1758. The third verse, it says, "Ode to grace, how great a debtor daily I am constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wondering heart to thee. Prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. I'm prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above." You might still be in church, and you might not ever leave the church, but still you have a tendency to wonder. You might show up on Sunday morning like everything's okay, but sometimes on Friday night or even Saturday night, you were wondering. And so the fail-safe system that Jesus installed into Christianity to cover for your sins was your brother who is to bring you back from the wondering. Did you see what it did? Your brother is supposed to help you out in the wondering. You are supposed to help your brother out in the wondering so that no one gets too far away. It's not about you do you and I'm gonna do me. It's about let's do this thing together.